If you're interested in doing your own gardening, growing your own food, before you do anything else, set up your own compost system. So we're coming into winter, it's early November now, and it's time when beds are kind of becoming quieter, and this time of year I would prep some of my beds that are empty. I would say 60% of my beds are still full at the minute, just with autumn winter crops that are still there. But anything that's free now gets compost, and I'll get mulch for the winter. So I'll go through my very simple makeshift compost system that I have here in the garden, and why it's so important to create your own fertility for your own garden. So I use the pallet compost system for my garden. It's not the most attractive looking thing. I got the bigger pallets, the blue and red ones, which are the most sturdiest ones. It's not ideal. I am aware that there is blue paint, red paint on them, and that can leach away. But that's what I use. If I didn't have the other side of the wall, which is just into the field here where the sheep are, I wouldn't have this pallet compost system. It doesn't look that nice, so I wouldn't have it the other side of the wall. So my garden is just the other side of the wall here, in there, hedge, wall, and then this, and you can't even see it. So ideally, no, I would build a lot nicer one. The only thing with wood, you'd need to get really good wood, which can be expensive because it'll rot over time. So even my first compost bay here, which was the first one I had set up, which is a bit older than the other two ones, and that's starting to deteriorate. So, you'll get maybe 3-4 years out of them, and then they get really kind of rotten, especially at the bottom. Whatever material you use, the base system is the best, having ideally 3. So you're filling one is composting, and one is ready to use. So that's generally how it works. No matter what material you're using to build the compost bins or bays, always keep in mind that having access to the ground underneath is quite important. I would always say that. So rather than having a concrete base, putting in a concrete base, just have it in contact with the soil underneath, because what will happen is all the microbes and the earthworms, but a lot of the microbes from that area in the soil will migrate up into that compost as well, which I think is very important. A lot of small gardens will have them compost bins, the plastic ones, and they're grand too. I've used them before. I find they can dry out quite quickly. So it's about keeping an eye on moisture there. And then to turn them or add air can be a bit difficult. You can get these kind of, almost they're like an auger that you can use to kind of rotate it. But they're grand too. So whatever works in your situation. But having contact with the underground or the soil beneath it, I think is very important. So if I was to invest more money into this compost base system, I like to use as much resources around. I have a bit of blocks around, so I would build 4 walls, 3 bays, and then I might use timber slats at the front that you can build up or take down. I'm sure you've seen them before. That would be my ideal one. Wouldn't go as far as investing for like a top or a roof on it. I don't think it's awful necessary. If you really do want to cover your compost bin, that's where I come in and use straw, or I use a bit of plastic, depending on what stage it's at. So that's enough for me, really. I have a few additional things that I'll have there, like a bit of manure on the go as well, which will top up the beds if I don't have enough compost. But I'm in a position now, as the years have gone on, I could nearly rely on just the garden compost. Now, so the compost I make is cold compost. So you have hot and you have cold compost. And I'm not at a stage where I'm making hot compost because I'm not getting enough material in there. I'm not getting it probably turned enough as well. But cold compost is fine. It just takes longer to break down. So I'm getting compost between 8 and 12 months. Yeah, I'll be able to get it in 8-9 months in a good year. No bother. Hot compost you can get in about 6 months, but it's still all good the same. So the hot compost, it wouldn't kill off any weed seeds there, so that's why I don't put in anything that is gone to seed. What I think is very important for making compost, whether you're making hot or cold, is diversity of material. Sometimes that can be quite hard, and it's depending on the year. So last month, coming into summer, into October, you do have a good diversity there. So you're still putting in your kitchen scraps. You have green material that is coming out of beds like brassicas, and then you have kind of brown material as well, like woody stuff or perennials that have died back and turned brown. So that's good. So yeah, you might have heard of green and brown material. You know, you're looking at 60-40 or 50-50. Look, you're not always going to get it that way. It's harder to get the brown material, particularly in the summer. You can always have brown material there in bags, like your shredded leaves, cardboard that's wetted, shredded paper that's wet, a straw, and stuff like that, just to add in. Now that's not always possible, but you just try your best, and just getting as much different material in there. So stuff coming off the beds, kitchen material. You even can go out and get material. So if you feel like, God, I haven't enough stuff going in here, you can go out and cut nettles even and throw them in. That's a really good high nitrogen green material that you can put in. As long as it's not gone to seed, it's during the growing season, it's fine. I've heard people using bracken or ferns. So if you can think of any green material around you that you can go and cut, and just throw in your compost bin, that builds it right up. So my first bin is the one I'm currently filling at the minute. It's got an awful lot of material, particularly in the last month, and that's because a lot of, the garden is starting to empty out for the winter. So there was a nice mix in there. So when a lot of perennials, particularly perennial flowers, start to die back, I would let them kind of die back on their own, and then I'd come in and cut them at ground level, and that can be a good source of brown material for the compost bin. And then there have been a lot of brassica leaves going in there at that time, so that's a nice kind of mix between the two. Vegetable peelings, I put weeds, I put everything really, but I put weeds, weed roots, like even dock root, buttercup, silverweed, that all goes in the compost, and I have no issues. As long as it doesn't go to seed, then you should be fine. So there isn't a whole pile that you can't put in. Cooked food and all that I wouldn't put in, or any dairy like that. So wood ash at this time of year, so we start kind of lighting fires in October. So then from then until around till March, I'll always have wood ash. Now you don't overdo it with the wood ash. You put in some now and again. You can always save that and put it in your compost during the growing season, but I tend not to. So I heard someone saying before, you shouldn't put more than 5% of what the compost material is of wood ash. So that's why I would just put it in small sprinklings over the winter and just leave it at that. There'll be enough wood ash then incorporated through it then. Now you shouldn't use any other ash, like it has to be wood ash. So if you're putting coal into your fire, I wouldn't use that. Just to make a note actually of what you wouldn't, I said there's not much you can't put in, but to avoid obviously your cooked food. But if you have a compost bin in your house that you put your vegetable peelings into, you might come across these compostable bags. I know it's a big no-no for me. I don't know what's in them. I know they break down a lot faster than regular plastic, but still there's some stuff in there that's just, they don't break down that fast. It takes them a good while. They take them a good 2 years. Some of the ones I've seen, any of those packaging that you see that they're biodegradable or compostable, will say, I'd never put them in. You just don't know what's in them really, and I don't want them in the compost. So I avoid using that. I don't use any of those bags. Now, after your diversity of material, the next thing that's important to the compost system is air. So how do you incorporate that in? And I do that by turning it. Now I seem to get away, I have got away before returning it once and it's made perfect compost. But because I have the 3 bay, it'll get turned twice in the year. So this one is filling at the minute. When that's full, I'll turn it into the next one. And basically when that one's full again, or just before that, I'll turn that again. So it'll get turned twice anyways in the year. And that's where you'll get your air in mostly. So you'll get your air in as well if you add kind of bigger bulky material, kind of woody stuff that just creates air pockets as well. But the key, I think, is turning it. That will get your microbes going. They need oxygen to work on the material, to live like ourselves. So air is quite important. And then the third thing, so you have your diversity, you have your air, and then they also need moisture. So if the pile gets too dry, which it can during the summer, it'll slow right down and there'll be very little being broke down. But if you keep an eye on that moisture level, and you might have to add a few cans of rainwater now and again, but generally in the summer when you're adding a lot of green material, that holds a lot of moisture as well. So you'll get used to it. If you see it falling as well, you know the microbiology is working as well, because this compost bin, which is full now, will go lose about 60 to 70% of its volume. So it breaks right down, and that's a lot of air pockets that might be in there, but just the material getting broken down as well. You'll see, as I said before, some compost areas, some compost bays have a little roof on them, or they have them covered. I don't think it's essential. If you find there's too much rain, you were getting a summer or a year where we're getting a lot of rain, always just can put a bit of a tarp on it, a bit of plastic, or you can always use cardboard or straw as well, and that keeps a lot of the dampness going down. I haven't had any issues. Like, I'll always leave my first one open. Sometimes it can get a lot of rain. I haven't had too much issues with it. Once it gets turned into my second bin, you can see the plastic on it there. So the plastic stays on that and it'll work away. And then the same with my third, that'll get plastic as well, because I'm not adding to it. So I find that's the best way. I don't see the point of putting an expensive roof on a compost system for a small garden. So I think I've touched on the main key areas: diversity, air and water. So I've already started using my third bin, which is ready to go. So it's less than halfway full when it was fully broken down. So it's about 40% full. Really nice compost, but yeah, it's taken 9-10 months. But really nice stuff, fluffy stuff. It's not dry, it's nice and crumbly. There's earthworms in there. And there's like no smell of it, which is actually a good thing. So if you're kind of smelling a bit sour, it's not great either. Looking for a compost as well that's kind of dark brown. This looks a bit kind of more darker, but if you're getting compost that's really dark, that means it's getting too hot. But I don't have that in this case because I know it doesn't get up to that temperature. So I'm applying this to any bed that's empty, and it acts as a nice mulch in itself, and it'll be ready to go for the spring. So that's my first compost bin and my third compost bin. So filling at the minute and ready to use. So what's my second one like? And I don't think it's far off from being ready to use. So the second one here, as you can see, is broken down nicely on top. You can see that. But another turn will do it no harm. I have a feeling there's stuff in the middle that is not quite broken down. Some of the bigger stuff that has gone in. So another turn will do that, no harm. And to get a bit of air in there, I feel that's a bit heavy, a bit wet. So the plastic's on that now, and that'll keep that a bit drier. So it would be actually in my interest to get rid of the rest of that third bin and turn that fairly soon, if I can, and then get the first one into this second one. So I said before, I always have a bit of manure to hand. At the moment I have a sheep manure, and it's just straight sheep manure. There's nothing mixed in it, there's no bedding or anything mixed in with it. So I have a pile of that here, and that goes in to some of the compost as well. And then I've actually applied some directly to one of my beds because it was kind of nicely broken down. This is actually really nice stuff. I got this over a year ago, and it was quite fresh when I got it. So I have it piled here, plastic put on it, and I just didn't touch it. Let it did its own thing, and a lot of earthworms came up, and they're working away on it. I have used some of it. You can see it there. It's really nice and crumbly and broken down. I also have a pile of it's calf bedding. So the bedding used was wood chip, and it's been cleared out of the calf pen, and it's mixed with their dung and wee, and that's been sitting up in the other yard for a year now, and that's doing its own thing. It's breaking down nicely. So there's kind of balance there between carbon and nitrogen, and that'll be added to dribs and drabs as well in my compost. But we'll let that break down some more. The wood chip can be quite big. If you don't live on a farm like I do, you might have neighbouring farms or knowing someone that does farm. Horse manure is probably the best I've ever worked with when it comes to manure. After that, then yeah, you have your cow manure, and I must say that sheep manure, that's true, but that's rare. You're not going to get straight sheep manure anywhere. But if you have space to have a small pile of it in your garden, then take some. Even if you just got started on your own compost, because you'll always, if you have kitchen scraps coming out of the kitchen, you can be making compost. You have bits in your garden, you can be making compost. So you have more material than you think around for making compost. So just look around, what's green, what can you kind of go in and cut back. And grass clippings is another one that I didn't mention. So if you're cutting your lawn, be careful with the amount of grass clippings you add to your compost bin. Because if you've ever piled your grass clippings in a big pile and you dig down, it gets all slimy. So that's what it'll do if you add it in big quantities to your compost bin. So you can be adding that in small bits to your compost as well. It's grand in compost, but just not in large quantities. So another component to composting or making my own fertility for the garden is leaf mold. So this pile I made this time last year, maybe a small bit earlier, and it was just full to the brim of leaves, all packed down, and you can see how much it's reduced by. It's amazing. So the nasturtiums are just starting to grow on top there, but leaf mold just adds a different kind of microbiome or microbiology to your soil. So we'll say compost, my garden compost would be kind of more bacterial based, which is good, like good bacteria. Manure would be very bacterial based as well, but the likes of leaf mold adds more of a fungal component to your garden as well. So leaf mold can take quite some time to break down, depending how you do it. Now you can speed that process up. I'm doing just the bare minimum just to get it going. So all I do is collect the leaves autumn time, fill up this bin, pack it down, and just let it do its own thing. And that takes about 12 months, maybe a bit more, which is a long process, but I think it's better doing it than not doing it at all. To speed that process up, you can bring it down to like nearly 6 months, I think, and that's by shredding the leaves. So if you have a shredder, it's probably the best way to do it. It just speeds up the process because you're breaking the leaves down a bit more, or you can do it with a lawnmower as well. So if you pile the leaves up or windrow the leaves, go over with the lawnmower and they'll chop it up and you can throw it straight in your pile. So this bin that I'm dealing with here is just 4 posts and some wire around it. Anthin will work as long as it doesn't hold water, and that's when you'll run into issues. I've seen people doing it in bags, in dark black bags. You put some holes in it and that'll do the same job as well. Another thing you need to keep an eye on is moisture content. So if that dries out and it's not getting any access to rain or some rainwater, that'll slow down the process then, because the bacteria or the soil biology that is on that to break it down, and the fungal matter needs water to do that process as well. Too bad you can see here there's still whole leaves on top that haven't broke down. Once you dig down into it, it's a lot more broken down, but I would definitely give, I'd say that's definitely another 6 months to finish its work. So when I first started out with the garden, I was using chicken pellets and a bit of seaweed, I think, and now I just don't use anthin. I create my own fertility. I'm just lucky I have the space to do it, and I work on creating enough compost, gathering material and all that, because it's important. There's lots of other ways as well to create feeds for your plant and all that. Compost teas and plant extracts and all that, but this is, I think, the foundation, having your own garden compost. If you want to learn anything about gardening, looking into soil health, soil biology is a good place to start, because it's absolutely mind-blowing what it does for your plants, your soil health, your plant health, pest and disease and all that. So that's what I'm doing anyways at the moment. I've started looking into natural Korean farming, and I've just scratched the surface with that. I haven't actually started doing any applications in my garden, so if you don't know what it is, you can look it up. It's very, very interesting. There's so many different components in natural Korean farming, and it's definitely a very long learning process, but it's very, very interesting.